Hey, it's Jeff Zito, and thanks for checking out yet another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast, streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Past episodes are up on celebrityjobber.com. It's pretty much a podcast, and we try to dig a little deeper and find out what celebrities were doing before they were famous. Maybe they had just, like a regular job, or maybe they were, going to college to pursue another path, and then boom, they get their big break, and stardom happens. And I urge you to check out the past episodes of Celebrity Jobber, as there are plenty of people that you and I know from movies or comedy or musicians who had completely different careers before they became famous. So regardless, I'm going to just tell you right now, this one is going to be a little different. And Corey Feldman is my guest today. And Corey, if you are listening, which I kind of think you will be, hopefully, I urge you to come on with me again. I would really like another shot at doing this podcast with you, because I really am interested in your story. And I think a lot of other people would be as well. Okay, so what I've pretty much researched about Corey Feldman was when he was 3 years old, he started working in commercials, and he basically says it was like slave labor. He grew up in California, his mother a former Playboy waitress. Seems like his parents were pretty strict with him, a lot of physical discipline. And when Corey was in his mid-teens, he won emancipation from his parents, as he alleged that they took around $1 million in earnings from his acting. So you kind of see where this is going, right? Regardless, this guy has been through a lot. The stories of sexual abuse as a child actor, the whole thing with Corey Haim, he gets into drugs, things that are very common for child actors. But this guy's been through a lot, and he's bitter. I think Corey Feldman is a pretty nice guy, but I think he just wants to be loved. I think his role of Teddy Duchamp in Stand By Me should earn him an Academy Award at 13 years old. That's how brilliant I think he was as a child actor. A true artist, Corey Feldman, into music these days, and he's about to tell us all about it. Strap in. Corey Feldman is my guest this week on Celebrity Jobber.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
I'm so glad I got a opportunity to chat with you.
No problem, man. No problem. Well, good to talk to you, buddy.
Yeah, man. I guess I want to start off by saying, I've already listened to the song "The Joke," and I've already just watched a little bit of the video. I guess you get it as far as being an artist, music, whether it's acting, whatever it is, you really understand the art. Very catchy song, and kind of funny, kind of humorous, but a little, is it a little autobiographical as far as I read into stuff a lot, so I was reading.
No, this has nothing to do with me. This is just completely random kind of, being a poet and observing life and some people's experiences. No, I'm just totally joking. Of course it's about me. That's funny, though.
You had me.
Well, good. I'm glad. Still something's working, even at this hour. No. Listen. You gotta realize that you can only take so many slings and arrows, before eventually you go, okay, you know what? I'm gonna comment on this. I'm going to give my, commentary on life, because that's what I do. That's what all writers are supposed to do. We're supposed to comment on the life that we observe, and that's what I do.
I listened to the song at first, and I was just like, man, I think Corey is mad. I think think he's bitter. And like you just said, a guy can only take what he takes so much. And I don't know what you take. I can just admire from afar and say,
let me tell you, if you go on YouTube and you type in my name, you can find out pretty quickly what I take, because it's laden with terrible, defamatory and slanderous videos, mocking me, ridiculing me, making up lies, gaslighting me, tearing my, real things apart to try and change them into some superstitious falsehood. It's just unfortunate, but, this is the times we live in. I guess if you're famous nowadays, you're subjugated to all sorts of ridicule and attacks and falsehoods, and people don't realize there's a human being on the other side of this.
Yes.
There's people that have actual feelings and thoughts and nerves and families and relationships and children that look up to them, and they have to go to school every day and hear kids talk about, I saw that video about your dad, what's wrong with him, you know what I mean, stuff like that. Nobody puts this stuff together anymore.
Right.
And thinks, gosh, there's human beings at the end of it all. And listen, I've taken my shots. I think I can take a few more. It's not going to kill me. That which doesn't kill us makes us stronger. But I happen to be an incredibly strong individual. But let me tell you, there's a lot of people out there that are not as strong as me. Sinead O'Connor is a perfect example. There's many people out there that are not as strong as me, that have been first kicked to the curb by an industry and then kicked in the face by these people who call themselves trolls or keyboard warriors or whatever the hell they want to call themselves. At the end of the day, they're sick. They're sick and twisted
You're
people
right.
who have nothing better to do than to taunt and terrorize artists or politicians or, world leaders, whatever it is. Everybody thinks that they're a smartass.
Right.
And everybody thinks that they've got something funny to say about this person's misery, about this person's loss, about this person's grief, about this person's misstep, about this person's sorrow. Like as if you're perfect and you are the architect of analysis to point the finger and say, this is the person that deserves this scolding. Well, did anybody ever stop and think maybe that person has had too much?
Right.
Maybe it's just too much.
Wow.
And maybe they're at their breaking point. Does anybody stop and think about that? Because I think about that stuff every day.
Wow. I mean, here we go. We're just talking about Corey Feldman, the person. I mean, not the actor, not the musician, the movie star. We just broke it down to you and me. We're the same. We're human beings. We've got feelings. We cut, we hurt. And I think that was really important. That was very important stuff. Take me back, Corey. Not like we don't have to go through your whole history. I know all your movies. My wife had your poster in her room for many years. But as far as being an artist, like how old were you when you realized you wanted to be an artist? Were your parents in the business?
I think I was about 50.
Okay.
No, I'm just joking. Look, that's a big threshold to cross. Okay, obviously, when you're a 3-year-old kid, you're not thinking that you're an artist. You're not thinking that you're in a career. You're not thinking what a great job. You're thinking, oh, my mom wants me to do this, or my dad wants me to do that, and that's it. So yes, it's a big leap from there to I'm going to own this and I'm going to be an artist per se for the rest of my life. That's a big challenging threshold to cross.
Yeah.
And I would say mine started at 19 years old.
Okay.
At 19 years old, when I was in a rehab and faced with the prospect of going to prison and faced with the prospect of never gaining a career back because I was blacklisted and destroyed, and I knew somewhere that all of this was coming, although I didn't really understand the magnitude, the weight, or the pain of it all. But I did know that, like, hey, guess what? Where they were always treating you so special, and you were always like, and I don't mean my family or parents or people close to me. I just just mean the media. I'd been their golden child. It was always, every movie I did came out to the theaters and it was number one, and that's all I knew. And now all of a sudden it was like, he's a junkie, he's this, he's that, he's terrible, his career's over, he's dead in the water. And I was 18 years old.
Still a kid.
Trying to establish that reality for a minute, that you're being told you're washed up at 19.
Right,
you know? And you're like, what are you talking about, washed up? I'm just getting my life started. Screw you. And I had to fight that ever since. And it's been a long 30-year battle of the world trying to tell me you're done, and me trying to say, no, I'm not.
No.
Celebrity Jobber.
Okay, so I just wanted to see if this happened to anybody else recently. You get one of those messages on your TV that's like, hey, free trial for this streaming platform. So like, great, I click on it. And not only do I not get the free trial, I find out I'm already subscribed to this streaming platform. And I've been paying $10.99 a month for the last 6 months. And I haven't even watched it once. It'll drive you crazy trying to figure out how this happened in the first place. But let me tell you about Rocket Money. They are a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, also monitors your spending and helps lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. You can see all of your subscriptions in one place, and if you see something you don't want, Rocket Money can help you cancel within a few taps. So stop wasting money on things that you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/jobber. That's rocketmoney.com/jobber. rocketmoney.com/jobber.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
No, you've got a lot to do. You got a lot going on, and there's something really big coming up with Corey that I want to talk about in a minute. Can you
just imagine if I gave up? Just imagine if I listened to the critics and I gave up 30 years ago.
Absolutely.
Like, think about how much of my art that I've dispatched in the past 30 years, love it or hate it. There's people that may say, "Oh God, well, you could have saved us all by just not releasing any of it." But there's also all of my lovely, loyal fans who eat up and drink up every bit of what I put out there, and they can't wait for the next release. So, who am I serving?
Right.
You can't serve two masters.
Right.
So, in the spiritual realm, I serve my only master, which is God. And by God's call, I've been given this talent, I've been given this outlet, I've been given this capability, and it just won't go away. So therefore, something in the universe tells me that this is my chosen profession.
This is
and if I'm going to make this a chosen profession, I better treat it like art, and I better give it everything to make it as authentic and genuine as possible. So if nothing else, you can listen to any lyric of any one of my songs and know that it is authentic.
Corey, have you always had has your occupation always been an artist? Meaning, have you ever held a normal job, a guy like me, a 9-to-5er? Have you ever held a regular job outside of show business and your very first job? What was that?
Let's put it this way. I'm one of the most renowned plumbers in the world, and a lot of people don't know this, but boy, can I clean a pipe like nobody's business. I am really one of the great pipers of all time. And a lot of people don't know, I can plumb, I can pipe, I can plumb and pipe, I can pipe and plumb, I can replace a pipe, I can wield and weld. It's amazing. But anyway, this is what I do. I've been an artist my whole life, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
And you've never held a normal job ever?
Listen, what you consider a normal job, Mr. Radio Guy, sitting here interviewing people for a living, I don't think that's a normal job. I think a normal job is going out on a construction site at 5 o'clock in the morning and, holding a beam up with your hard hat.
Right.
That's a real job, right? You and I don't have real jobs, if that's what you want to consider it. That said, my job is very real. I don't think many people want to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to, take crap from a bunch of people who probably don't have their best interests in mind so they can promote their newest project. A lot of people don't want to get up at 5 in the morning to stand in the freezing cold while they pour, hose water on top of their heads to make it look like it's a rainy day, and have to do it over and over and over and over while some guy's screaming in your face and telling you you're not good enough. That's part of my job.
Right.
Standing on a stage and having people heckle you and throw things at you or whatever. Not to say that happens, but just saying people do. These things happen. So, people don't understand that when you're an artist, you're an actor, you're a musician, it's like being a doctor or a lawyer. It's worse than a regular job. It's way worse than a 9-to-5 job. And you know why? Because you've got to get up every day and put a smile on your face and be nice to a child, be nice to a woman, be nice to whoever comes up to you and says, oh, remember when you were 12 and you said this line? That was just the greatest line. Who gets that in life? Who has random people come up to them and approach them and talk to them about something they did when they were a kid and then say, I want to take a picture with you.
Right.
And you have to just stop everything you're doing, and you have to do that, because if not, you're going to ruin that person's day.
Right.
Who else has that kind of a responsibility? Nobody. And those responsibilities are 24/7, because you can't put your face in a jar like a mask. It's your face, whether you like it or not. So therefore, when you walk out of the house, it doesn't matter what hour, it doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter what city, all over the world, the same response is going to happen from people, and you've got to be ready to deal with it. And you've got to be in a good mood, and you can't crack, and you can't be depressed, and you can't be mad, because guess what? If you do, somebody's going to capture it on their phone and put it on TMZ.
Man.
And then you're a jerk.
Right.
Everybody thinks you're a jerk. No,
Right.
I'm not a jerk. I was fighting with my wife.
Right.
I was fighting with my girlfriend. My brother just, had an emergency and almost died. Nobody knows what's going on in that person's life. But yet we all think we have the right to assume and point the finger and say they're not doing their job good enough.
Right. Corey, what was it in your life that you feel like was your quote unquote big break? Is there something that introduced you to the world, a particular moment in your life?
Yes, when my son was born, that was my real moment in life. That's the moment that mattered. Everything else is BS. But the moment that my kid was born, we went through an emergency. He was born preemie. He was born 7 weeks early, and we didn't know if he was going to live or die. It was touch and go. It was a very terrifying moment in my reality, and that is a real moment in life. That's something that's, life-changing, pivotal moment that makes you realize this is my greatest accomplishment, bringing this life into the world and trying to care for this life for 18 years and do the best job I can to make sure that they're a balanced, responsible, loved, caring person. And I think I did that. So that's my greatest accomplishment.
What does he do now? How old is he?
He works for me, of course.
Oh, excellent.
Yes. He's 19 years old, and he's on the road with me. He was just on the Howie Mandel podcast, where we actually premiered the song, The Joke. We did a live performance on Howie's show. You can watch it. He was interviewed for the very first time. Well,
very cool.
By someone outside of his dad's productions, I should say, because he was in my documentary as well. But his first real interview with Howie Mandel. So, yeah, go watch Howie Mandel Does Stuff, and you can see my son Zen.
I will. That's very, very, very cool.
Celebrity Jobber. The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
Can you describe your meeting with Fred Durst, how you became friends with him, and ultimately open up for Limp Bizkit, which I hear that's kind of a big deal?
Well, hopefully it's a big deal. We'll see what happens, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think it's a big deal.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Well, let's see. Fred and I have been friends for a long time. We go way back. Him and I started probably talking around, I would say, the late 90s. We met, I believe, at the Playboy Mansion. And, ever since the day we met, we talked about doing stuff together. He told me he was a big fan of my movies growing up with me. I was a big fan of his, I wouldn't say I was a big fan of his. I would just say I knew of him. I knew he was very popular at the time, and he was kind of one of those breakout guys because I had a lot of admiration for what he had achieved very quickly and at such a young age, because he became like the president of Interscope, or he was like the vice president or something like that. But I know he was very high up at Interscope Records very quickly, and I believe he helped discover people like Eminem. He had a big voice, and so when I got the opportunity to talk with him, it was like, oh boy, this could lead to great things. And as it turned out, we kind of just became friends. We communicated for probably a decade before we actually did something together, but I think it was around 2010, somewhere in there, where we first decided to try something out and get in the studio together. Maybe 2012. But right around there, we started, kind of playing with ideas, and eventually got my first song, or our first song, our first collaborative effort together, which was on my Angelic to the Core album, which was released in 2014 or 2015, and that song was called Seamless. And it's a great song that Fred and I did together with Scott Page from Pink Floyd, and he's the sax player. Great parts on that too. Great song, great writing, great production, really cool song. And it's kind of like the perfect blend. If you listen to my music and you listen to Limp Bizkit, you put those two sounds together, that's what that song is. So it's really cool. And then we did a show together at House of Blues. I got up and I performed with Limp Bizkit, which is a video you can find on my YouTube channel as well. And by the way, the song Seamless is part of my Angelic to the Core album, which had been taken off streaming recently and is going back up on the streaming services as of July 4th. So you'll be able to find that song again, and you'll be able to find the album Angelic to the Core again on the 4th of July. For America's birthday, I felt it was appropriate to have some angelic love. But anyway, so we went and did a few live performances together, and then he came and did a telethon that I was doing to help autism. Just little things throughout the years. And then, I kept on my path, he kept on his. And I believe I was actually at the House of Blues in the middle of last year's touring, promoting my most recent album, which is part of a box set called Love Left 2.1. And it's a 6-disc collection, 4 CDs, 2 DVDs, sold at my website, CoreyFeldman.net. And we were promoting that. We did 2 years of touring. And one of the big things we did last year was Riot Fest, where we made history because we got 20,000 people to come out to the smallest stage at 2:30 in the afternoon, which the promoters of the event told me that in 15 years of throwing the festival was the first time they ever had that kind of a response.
Wow, right on, man.
So we made history. It was a very big deal. So he saw that, and I think that inspired him to give us a call. And he called me while I was at House of Blues about to go on stage, and he was like, hey, man, what do you think about coming out on tour with my band this year? I was like, you want me to join your band? He's like, no, we just want you to open for us.
Right on.
Okay, yeah, we could do that.
Corey, I got to tell you, man, the joke, I think it's really catchy. I admire you. I feel for what you go through, but you are strong. You are sending a message to people who aren't as strong, and I just thank you for taking the time this morning.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And speaking of strong, I got to ask you, are you friends with, related to Joe Zito?
No, no, I'm not. No relation.
Joseph Zito directed Friday the 13th, the final chapter. So,
oh, wow.
There's a lot of Zitos I've met in my life. Yeah.
Wow, right on. Well, it was a pleasure. Hopefully this one didn't disappoint you. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
No. All the Zitos are great. Love the Zitos. All right, buddy. Have a great day, man. Thanks for everything. And by the way, let me me say this. If you want to come meet me after the show, come out to the Loserville show. We are selling VIP meet and greet tickets on my website at CoreyFeldman.net. You can get them right now exclusively at CoreyFeldman.net.
Thanks, Corey. Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay, so you hear it, man. I mean, really a nice guy. I think he's a really a cool guy. And I think he's just a little misunderstood. I think he might bring it on himself a little bit. But, some important things that I took from this, I've never walked a mile in his shoes, so I don't know what it's like to be, somebody wants a picture with you. And yeah, to you and me, it doesn't sound like that's that big a deal. But what if he just broke up with his girlfriend? He had something really traumatic happen that day or just minutes before. It's like he's got to be on all the time for complete strangers. And if he's not, he's a dick. So just kind of like a little bit of what he has to go through. I know a lot of people say it's kind of the price that you pay for being, a star. But I don't think any of these guys ever think about being ridiculed. I was just watching this really cool documentary about the band Nickelback. And it was basically showing you how these guys who just like writing their music, they got to a point in their career where it wasn't cool to like them anymore. And people just like rolling down the windows, passing the guy in the street, being like, your band sucks. I don't know how anybody could, mentally handle some stuff like that. And Corey says that he gets it every single day. He just goes, look my name up on YouTube. You'll see it. I mean, people are really giving him a lot of shit. And he goes out there, he takes it, but he's a human being. And he said those words hurt. And it was kind of like when we were talking about his song, The Circus, and it was a little jokey sounding if you listen to it, but you can hear he's bitter. He's talking about himself and how people think he's a joke. He's on a tour with Limp Bizkit right now. It's called Loserville. But I kind of feel bad because I think the guy is a little misunderstood and he's just trying to put stuff out that his fans love and continue making a career. He did voluntarily speak of being 18 years old, being a junkie, going to rehab, going to prison, being washed up. I think Hollywood does, kind of eat you up and spit you out. He's been through a lot. So maybe you kind of see where he's coming from. I don't know what kind of job he ever had. Maybe he was always an actor since the age of 3. Maybe that's the only job he's ever had. His big break, I could assume, one of the movies, Mouth and the Goonies, Teddy Duchamp, Stand By Me, Friday the 13th. He had that big run with Corey Haim in the 80s. The two Coreys, they were inseparable, very popular. Corey Feldman and Michael Jackson, that whole friendship. I really hope I get another opportunity to talk to Corey Feldman about all this stuff. And I just hope the guy's happy. I think he deserves that. So anyway, thank you once again for listening to the Celebrity Jobber podcast, plus the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/the@celebrity jobber, Instagram, celebrity jobber _podcast. Please subscribe. Would love a 5-star rating and leave a review. Once again, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Even though I didn't get a lot out of Corey Feldman, I really, really appreciate his time, and I really appreciate his honesty about kind of what he's going through. So I thought it was pretty cool. Thanks again for listening. Until next week, we'll see you then. I'm Jeff Zito.